Hi, it's me, it's Lisa. I'm gonna start talking about things that of my life. Um, Not a haul video, not me singing and acting stupid. So, if this is not your gig, that's fine. Peace out. See you later. I'm just gonna um, tell you a couple things, and just so that you can understand me a little better and maybe I don't know. I just thought y'all might like to get to know me a little better instead of just this goofy girl that's singing in the car and arguing with her husband and buying stuff at the Dollar Tree. Because I do a lot of that, but I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I have four sisters. I have a half sister, and I have my other three sisters. We're very close. My oldest half sister is my dad's daughter. I'm not close to her at all. I haven't talked to her in years, quite frankly. I I attempted in my early 20s to get to know her, and she just, I don't know whether she's just not interested in having a relationship with me or what, but my dad is 12 years older than my mom. My mom was his third wife. They say third time's a charm, so it worked out for them. They were married almost 50 years when my dad passed away, and my dad died in 2010. And I loved my dad. I was a big time daddy's girl. I mean, I adored the man. We used to fight like cats and dogs. I'm not saying that he was perfect, because he wasn't. The man was a medic in World War II, and he was in the second wave at Normandy, and I had a lot of respect for him. But I honest to God think that the man suffered from PTSD, quite frankly, and I'm going to squeeze my macaroon while I talk. And so I think that, you know, he didn't have a lot of to give, because he was kind of messed up inside. And even though I was born in 68 and it was a long time after the war, I mean, I just think it affected him for his whole life. And I always knew that my dad loved me. Always knew that my dad loved me. But we fought. I mean, seriously, we fought a lot, argued a lot. And I was a kid. I was stupid. And he just, I'll give you an example. You know how you are when you're a kid, you think your parents are the dumbest people you ever met on earth? I mean, we were eating dinner one time, and he was telling my mom a Dolly Parton joke, something about boobs, who knows. And I just sat there and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this man, what is wrong with him? And then as you get older, you realize that your dad it's just wonderful, and your parents are wonderful, and you're lucky if you get good parents, because I had great parents. My dad went to work every day. He wasn't that affectionate and whatever, but my mother more than made up for it. My mother was, I mean, I talked to my mom. I married a guy when I was 23, and he was in the military, and I left Michigan, and I didn't come home except for brief extended stays. And I still don't live in Michigan. I live in Texas. I live in San Antonio. And I would talk to my mom all the time. I mean, I called her all the time. I talked to her on the phone just night and day. And then, I also talked to my dad, but usually this would happen. I would call and I go, "Hi, Dad, how are you?" He goes, "Let me get your mother." It just happens. And I always knew that my dad was older than everybody else's family, parents, whatever. And so, you know, but you never think that your parents are going to die. I mean, you know in your head that your parents are going to die. I mean, everybody is going to die sometime. It's just the way of life. But your brain, I guess, and your heart just cannot go there. And my dad, the last time I saw my dad, he went to visit me. I lived in Tucson, Arizona, and he came to visit me, and he seemed kind of confused by stuff, and I should have known something was going on. And I drove him to the airport because it's cheaper to fly out of Phoenix than it was Tucson, and I drove my parents to Phoenix, and we had a good conversation and everything was cool. But he had just seemed a little off that trip, just like he was sleepy or something, or not following the gist of the conversation. And so I shouldn't be surprised. My dad worked for Learjet for years and years, and my half-sister flew into Michigan to see my parents, and my dad went to pick her up at the airport. This was after they got home. It was a couple months later. And he got lost. He couldn't find his way home from the airport, and he had driven that route. He worked at the airport. He worked for Learjet, and he drove back and forth all the time. I mean, so it was like, why is Dad getting lost on the way home from the airport? It makes no sense. And eventually he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Yeah. And don't think that doesn't scare the hell out of me, because it does. That, I might get it. It's true. I think about it. It's in the back of my head. I can't find my keys. Oh my gosh, am I coming down with Alzheimer's? Anyway. So, I was raising kids. My kids were little, and I was working full-time, and I lived in Arizona, and it's like 10 states away. And so I didn't get home, and so by the time I got home, it had been a couple years after I'd seen, maybe 2 years after I'd seen him in Phoenix, a year and a half. And he never said my name the whole time I was there. And my mom was taking care of him constantly. Couldn't leave him alone. And my dad loved to go out to eat. And my mom, I don't know where my mom was, but I put my dad in the car and we were gonna go up to like the local diner and have something to eat. And I pulled in the parking lot and I realized that I couldn't get him out of the car. Couldn't do it. Hold on a minute. Oh, thank God I bought those napkins the other day at the Dollar Tree to decoupage with. Sorry about that. So anyway, I realized I couldn't get him out of the car because he was too big for me, and it broke my heart because I wanted to buy my dad a cheeseburger. And so I actually went in the restaurant and we got food to go, and I got him home. And when I was there, I just, I cried a lot, and my mom's like, say, don't do that. Your dad loves you. It's okay. My mom was 12 years younger than my dad, so she had a lot of energy to take care of him. God bless her. And it was a sad trip for me because I have a lot of guilt because I live so far away. And but at the time I had small children, and I had children to take care of, and I know it's an excuse, and it's a bad one. It's a poor excuse. I have so many regrets. I try not to live with regret. I try and let it go, but It's hard. So anyway, I need a drink. In 2010, my whole life exploded, and I sent my children to live with their father, and I ended up moving to Texas, to San Antonio. My sister lived there with her husband and kids, and she was getting a divorce, and I was in a bad state, and she said, come to Texas. And so that's what I did. I packed up all my stuff and I came to Texas. And she was going to drive up to my mom and dad's, and I can't even remember why we decided to go, but so we did. We took a road trip. It was me, her, and the two kids, and I was a mess. I was emotionally, I was having a terrible time because I had sent my children to live with their dad. I had broken up with a guy who had treated me terrible. I mean, just absolutely awful. He was bad to me, he was bad to my kids, and, it was like this really cruddy relationship. So, anyway, so we drove up to Michigan, and my dad was totally he couldn't walk. We wheeled him around. And those walkers that have seats? We would sit him in that and wheel him around. And I remember I was sitting in a chair, and my dad was in his chair, and he in the living room, and I was cross-stitching, and I was eating candy, and my dad kept looking at me, and I'm like, "What, Dad? Do you want something? You gotta go to the bathroom? What do you need? Do you want me to get Mom?" And he's just like, like that. And I guess he wanted a piece of candy, and it. And even then, I don't think I thought that my dad would die. Never occurred to me. We stayed about 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, and then we drove back to Texas. And I was at work in right around Thanksgiving, November, and my sister showed up, and I'm like, "What are you doing here? Why are you at my work?" And she just goes, "Dad's dead." She just blurted it out, and I mean, I just couldn't even function. I was like, "What? What? What happened?" And I guess what had happened, he had been having a series of mini strokes, and he was eating, my mother had cooked him liver, which he loved, and he was eating it, and they think he either had a stroke, and then because your brain starts to forget how to do things when you have Alzheimer's, and he forgot to swallow, I guess, and in the act of swallowing, he choked to death. And my mother blamed herself. I mean, she said it was all her fault that she had made him liver, that she shouldn't have made him liver, that she knew he couldn't chew right, and she kept saying, "I killed your father," and we were like, "Mama, no, Mama, no." It was horrible. Christy and I flew up there for the funeral, and it was terrible. And my mother was not sleeping, and I would lay in bed with her, and she'd cry, and then she'd laugh, and then she'd tell stories about my dad, and I would try and hug her and hold her, and it was awful. And then it came time for the funeral. They asked that somebody had to talk, and nobody wanted to talk. None of my sisters wanted to talk. And so I took it upon myself to do it, and so I stood up there and I gave my dad's eulogy, and I'm really proud of that. I'm proud that I did that for him. that I could, because the minister didn't know my dad. I mean, I'm assuming he preached his normal funeral sermon. And, you know, he was a good guy. He was married. He had children. God blessed him with this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, you don't know my dad. I'm going to get up there. I'm going to tell y'all what my dad was about. You know, and I was so proud that I could do that for him. Because I loved him so much. And my mother, I told her, I said, don't look at me because I will lose it. So, of course, you know, she just looked at her feet. And I think she was happy that I did that for him. Anyway, my dad's favorite color was red. So we all wore red to the funeral. And my mother's like, what are these people going to say? And I'm like, who cares? This is not their dad or their husband. This is our dad. And we're going to wear red if we want to. Because Dad liked it. Of course, because he was a veteran, they... Excuse me. I'm so sorry. They, They shot the guns for him and gave my mom the flag. And I stayed a couple days, and then Christy and I went back to Texas and tried to get on with life. In 2010, I never want another year like that. That was the worst year of my life, and I'm not joking. It was really, really awful. I mean, I look back now, and I don't know how I survived it. I mean, it was terrible. So anyway, this might be a two-parter. I don't know. I'm gonna stop at 2010, and I'll get back to y'all because I need to get my SHIT together because I don't think I could go on. I need some time. I need some coffee. All right.